We're going across directly to Srinagar, where my colleague Fareed is standing by. Fareed, thank you for joining us. We also understand that for most of the day, there was cross-border firing that took place between India and Pakistan. Could you give us an update of what the situation is in the valley right now?
Well, Faye, the situation is definitely tense, and we've seen escalation as far as Indo-Pak hostilities are concerned. There was already tension on the line of control. But since yesterday, ever since the surgical strikes happened, as Indian Air Force entered POK and bombed those camps, we've seen that tension has escalated and it has translated into ceasefire violations. Now, almost every sector since yesterday has been affected by ceasefire violations. You talk of Jammu, especially from Poonch, Rajouri, Nowshera. Every sector has seen ceasefire violations, heavy fire traded by Indo and Pakistan armies. Both the sides have claimed that they have managed to cause damage, but the real escalation came when the fighter jets, Pakistani fighter jets, bombed some locations on line of control. It was retaliated, and then we know how things unfolded in the sequence of events. But yes, ever since that attack has happened in Pulwama, the valley has been tense. There has been a build-up, a slow and steady build-up, kind of war preparation that was ongoing. And in fact, probably it seems that there was something in mind as far as the government of India is concerned. And for that, there were some internal things that were happening in the Kashmir Valley wherein preparedness was made. But obviously, that has led to panic amongst the masses. People are in panic. And as we have been reporting since morning, what has added to their woes is the fact that there has been a fuel shortage in the Kashmir Valley, no petrol, diesel available. The government has been in denial mode. They say that everything is all right, fuel is on way, things will be replenished. But on the ground, absolutely different picture. And people literally have been pushed to the wall. We've seen this steady build-up and people's woes really continuing over a period of time. But definitely things have escalated since yesterday. Today, there was already a shutdown as far as Kashmir Valley is concerned, but since morning, people obviously in panic, expecting that something may give. This may escalate into a full-blown war between India and Pakistan, and that's really has been the topic of the day as far as the Kashmir Valley is concerned. Social media also abuzz with activity. So this is something that has adversely affected people here. Obviously, it's a daily routine thing as far as people are concerned, because every day they see bloodshed, something or the other thing is happening. But from the last some time, because of this increased tension between India and Pakistan, people of the Kashmir Valley have literally been facing this. Every night you have aircrafts who keep hovering over the Kashmir Valley, the Indian Air Force aircrafts on patrolling, and that again keeps people assuming and speculating different things as far as the tensions with Pakistan are concerned. So all these things basically happening through the day, and people are hoping that from now on maybe things may de-escalate and some semblance of normalcy may return. Back to you.
Thank you, Fareed, for that update from Srinagar. My colleague Fareed there, who's been tracking the situation in the valley for us, bringing us an update of the tension that has been escalating in the valley of Kashmir. There has been a very significant development today. While Pakistan claimed it had 2 of our Air Force officers and pilots in custody, not long ago, the Ministry of External Affairs, through a note it put out, has confirmed that 1 Air Force pilot is in Pakistan custody. There have been several videos that have been released by Pakistan of the pilot in question. We will not use any of those videos on the channel, but the big question that is on everybody's mind right now is, how do we bring him back? That's the conversation we're focusing on right now at 8 p.m. on Mirror Now. Joining me on the show, Anil Triguniyat is a former ambassador, Colonel Dhanveer Singh, Javed Ansari, senior journalist, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, N. Ram, senior journalist, and Vinay Tiwari, consulting editor with the Times Network. Gentlemen, I welcome all of you to this conversation, and I thank you for your time. Air Marshal Chopra, my first question to you. Obviously, everybody's thoughts right now are with the Indian Air Force pilot in question who is in Pakistan custody. Will, in your mind, bringing him back safely be top priority for the Indian government at this point? And will this weigh heavily on any decision made in de-escalation or escalation any further?
Undoubtedly, the issue has got escalated. We had carried out a strike against 3 terror camps. And immediately after the successful strike, the Foreign Secretary had come on air, told the entire world and told the Pakistanis that it was not a strike against the Pakistan people, it was not against the Pakistan military, it was a strike against terrorist camps. And we all knew, we had intelligence information that they were going to strike us. But it was expected that Pakistan would retaliate. In fact, they had made statements to that effect immediately. And this morning at around 10:30, they have tried to make intrusions with the F-16 aircraft, and they were prevented from entering India. And in that engagement, one F-16 has been shot. Initially, nobody has accepted this fact. In fact, the Pakistan continued to say that 2 of our aircraft have been shot, but later on they said only 1 aircraft. And among that 1 aircraft is 1 pilot, which our MEA spokesperson has confirmed has been missing in action. But in the social media, through various other means, the Pakistanis have showed us the pictures and videos. Most unfortunate way of doing it. But we know that he is alive, he is safe, he has injuries. But we hope that the demarche which has been given to them in the evening, one of the things that has been mentioned in that, which is of high priority, is that they must follow the Geneva Convention in dealing with the downed pilot, and they must hand over the pilot at the earliest. And this is of great importance to a responsible air force like ours.
Vinay Tiwari, the Geneva Convention. I just want to read out for our audience benefit the portion from the MEA's note that came out. It says, India strongly objects to Pakistan's vulgar display of the injured personnel from the Indian Air Force in violation of all norms of the international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention. It is made clear that Pakistan would be well advised to ensure no harm comes to the Indian defence personnel in its custody. India also expects his immediate and safe return. For the benefit again of our audience, what does the Geneva Convention and the international humanitarian law say when it comes to officers like the one in question?
Well, so Geneva Convention has 4 tenets to it and pretty much covers everything. It covers a full-scale declared war scenario. It also talks about a scenario where 2 countries may not be locked in a war, but an army officer of one particular army is found behind the enemy lines of another army. It also covers how an attacking army or an enemy army should treat civilians of a particular area. So it covers pretty much everything. And under those conventions, the treatment of an officer who is now downed, who is not in combat, who is now out of action, or who's injured, he has to be given exactly the same treatment as you would give to your own citizen in many ways, which means immediate and prompt medical attention. His rights as an individual need to be respected. You cannot torture or physically assault him in any which way. And the immediate return of that downed soldier to the parent country or the country that he belongs to has to be done immediately. Sadly, unfortunately, the previous instance where something similar happened, which is in 1999 during Kargil.
Yes, that was going to be my next question to you.
Yes, Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa got downed. They did not do that for 8 days. I mean, there was a lot of back channel diplomacy that happened, but Nachiketa returned only after 8 days of him getting downed. In that.
And were the Geneva Convention, laws followed in his care while he was away for those 8 days?
Well, so now the thing is that when a soldier, when he returns from captivity of an enemy country, frankly, he's put through a debrief for a few days. And nothing really is made public about what really happened. So the army will never officially acknowledge the debrief report that they would have got from Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa in the previous instance. But your assumption or guess is as good as mine. The fact of the matter is, like it or not, Geneva Conventions are conventions on paper. How much they're actually followed by enemies and by the armies is a big question mark in many ways.
N. Ram joins us. He's a senior journalist as well. Mr. Ram, obviously the Ministry of External Affairs putting out a very, very strongly worded note, which I'm sure you've seen as well, reminding Pakistan about the Geneva Convention, reminding Pakistan about the international humanitarian law. But obviously, far more is going to need to be done to ensure that this Indian Air Force pilot comes home and comes home safely.
Yes, I saw the video. He didn't seem badly injured. We were happy to note that. And he refused to answer some questions, but he also said he comes from deep south. I know where he comes from, but we don't have to reveal this at this point since he didn't do that. He said down south. So it's good. It's a great relief that he seems to be not badly injured. He was very coherent in the video. I didn't think it was vulgar, but that's government's point of view, because he was just normal as far as we could see. But the main thing that came out is he's safe. How soon he'll be returned has to be negotiated, and I think it'll be very good coming on the back of Prime Minister Imran Khan's statement offering dialogue. And let me just quote a key sentence in it: "We are ready for any sort of dialogue on terrorism." I think if that is accepted, at least in principle, I think the captured the downed Indian pilot will be returned safely as soon as possible, which means in a matter of days, I think. And it'll be a very good gesture on the part of Pakistan to do it unconditionally, unilaterally, but that may be too much to expect. But I think he must be returned. But more than objecting to it, I was very relieved to see the video.
Yes, Anil Trigoniath is with us as well, former ambassador. Mr. Trigoniath, what are your expectations right now? How would the government go about ensuring the release of this pilot?
Well, the safety of the pilot is the most important, and that has been conveyed to the acting High Commissioner of Pakistan, and especially, as has been mentioned by Mr. Ram also, that the statement that was made by Prime Minister Imran Khan, in that he also mentioned about that he's with us. And so they have acknowledged that our pilot is there and he's safe at the time. Now, the fact is, if Pakistan is really serious and it really means business and he wants to de-escalate the situation with India, we have already made our cards pretty much clear what action we are going to take in case there is a further incursion or if there is another terrorist attack. So India has already created its own red lines, up to which point the Pakistan has to come clean. It is very easy, for Prime Minister Imran Khan to make a nice statement inviting India for the dialogue. But you got to create the conditions for that dialogue. And the basic condition remained that in response to what India attacked or decimated the jaish-e-mohammed's hideout in Pakistan, which was known to everyone, and he knows where is the jaish-e-mohammed's Bahawalpur chief and Masood Azhar, everybody is there, and they have been protecting them. Now, in his whole statement, he has just spoke about Pulwama and the pain and what Pakistan has been going through, but he has not talked about the presence of the jaish-e-mohammed, for which we have even today provided the dossier also, complete dossier to them. And so if he says that he wants to come clean, in my view, as far as the pilot is concerned, we should make it a precondition for any talks. And first, they should, as a goodwill gesture, return him safe and sound to India. And that is the only way that a dialogue should begin, in my view.
We have information just coming in that the three service chiefs were meeting with the Prime Minister at the Prime Minister's residence. That meeting has just ended. In fact, there's visuals right now of them exiting the Prime Minister's residence, and this is important. Vinay, we've had several high-powered meetings happen during the day, including one core government meeting that the Prime Minister chaired at the beginning of the day. So obviously, India weighing its options very carefully here.
Yes, and I think those options would now include the release of the pilot, because obviously now that there is a confirmation that has come from the government. Remember, in the afternoon when the emir spoke, they did not confirm him as having been captured. They changed that in the evening because they now confirm that he's in captivity. And that would be the option as well, because as all of our experts are saying, that would be now priority number one. You have to get him back, and you have to get him back in good health and good shape. That definitely would be an option. There are also various back channel moves that are usually done, even in times of extreme conflict. Some of the back channel communication lines are kept open pretty often. I don't know if they, in the current environment, in this government that has happened or not, but at least in the previous governments, in previous situations of hostility, whether it was Operation Parakaram or Kargil, there was a track to communication of some sort that was kept open.
I have a question, and this question has been asked right now on social media and by a lot of other citizens, which is that since now Pakistan has released a video of the officer, and we've seen, like Mr. Ram was pointing out, we've seen that he's mostly in good health. Can they now in any way harm him? Because we would expect that he remain in good health, and the Geneva Convention actually points out that he be treated like one of their own.
Look, they'll be very foolish to harm him, to be honest, but then harm has many meanings. I mean, my point is that their decision to release the video was part of their propaganda war. They want to send home the message that they're treating him well. It's similar to something that happened in the Jadhav case, for instance, where they did release a video where Jadhav is saying all kinds of things which pretty much obviously were being said under duress. And that was a point that was made by Mr. Salve in the ICJ hearing as well, that man was kept under duress and a lot of questions. Please understand that the Air Force pilot that they've got today is also a source of information. I mean, it's very difficult to believe that they're not going to use him to get some information out. Now, whether they use force to get that out or they use some kind of psychological tools to get information out of him remains to be seen. But I think it'll be very foolish on the part of Pakistan to physically harm him, because that's really a very, very provocative move that they would do.
Yes. Colonel Danveer Singh is with us as well. Colonel Singh, do you agree that it would be extremely provocative and also foolish for Pakistan to bring any harm to the officer that is currently in their custody?
Very firstly, once the country acknowledges that there is a prisoner of war, please be very sure that he will not be harmed, A. B, I do not agree with your panelists that pilot's return would be top priority of the country as of now, at this moment. Can we afford a dialogue with the enemy when we do not have any kind of an upper hand in this short conflict that we are seeing for past 12 days? It is just not wise. It will be hitting on the national pride and various other issues. This will affect the national decision-making thing in future. So I don't think so. As of now, the situation is that India can go in for negotiation when we have one PW and we are at par with Pakistanis, and they are having literally an upper hand when it comes to mathematics. So this is not the correct time. So that's it.
Well, okay, so let me open this up to the panel. Javed Ansari hasn't made his opening statement yet. Javed Ansari, do you agree that bringing the pilot back would be top priority in our government's mind? Or do you think, like Colonel Singh just pointed out, that we perhaps can't afford to make that our top priority at this point?
Well, the top priority is to ensure that there are no more incursions from the Pakistani side, to ensure the safety and security, and also to ensure that the Indian pilot who's in Pakistani custody at some point of time at the earliest is brought back. There are various ways of doing it. Vinay Tiwari and Mr. Ram spoke of back channel contacts. They can activate the UN. They can get people like America and China to weigh in on the Pakistanis. They're making a lot of use of Prince Salman. Get him to talk to the Pakistanis that if Imran Khan is really serious, then he needs to demonstrate his intent by allowing the Indian Air Force pilot to come back, to send him back safely to India. That will be a good starting point. I most respectfully disagree with what the Colonel had to say. This is, no sane person would want a war unless it is forced upon us. And if even at this stage there is some way we can avoid a war, we can avoid things from escalating, we should give that. We should first exhaust that option before thinking of anything else.
Well, I want to open this up to the panel right now. Gentlemen, gesture to me if you want to weigh in or you want to come in on it. Mr. Ram, my question is to you. Obviously, when we started off, the focus of the government was, yes, yes, I can see you. I'll come straight to you. Mr. Ram, the focus of the government was to dismantle or to stop terror building on the other side of the border. the focus then and now has become about this IF pilot who is not, who's on the wrong side of the border right now and in custody of Pakistan. So will all of this weigh in? And the larger question of social media and public opinion and pressure on the government to bring him back, will this change the decision-making priorities and the decision-making process?
Yes, this is an emotional issue, and you don't have to say which is the top priority and so on. These are important things to ask for, to expect. But I think you would expect, since Imran Khan, Prime Minister Imran Khan is on record saying we should use our heads and act with wisdom, that would also, I think, lead to the proposition that you release the wing commander, the pilot who's in their custody, unilaterally or unconditionally. If that is done, it creates a much better atmosphere because I believe there is no alternative to dialogue. Let me make it absolutely clear. There are people here who will say, we'll put various conditions here. I totally disagree with that. Of course, you got to put conditions side by side, but you got to engage with the other side. There is no alternative to it. And secondly, what do you lose by it? You can't be pressured by social media and the hawks and the ultra-nationalists, the chauvinists, to say no dialogue at all. President Trump is talking to the leader of North Korea today. On what basis? And I think I welcome that sort of thing. So I think this is a good opportunity for both countries to engage in dialogue. India can put forward its demands. Terrorism is not going to, the infrastructure is not going to go overnight, but it's a legitimate demand. Provide evidence, have a campaign on that, and try to persuade the other side. You have absolutely no alternative to it because, to quote Prime Minister Imran Khan again, and I think who can disagree with it? I don't think anyone is going to disagree with it, but let me quote it for the record, because I think it's an important thing that many Indians also believe. I ask India, you can say I ask all Indians, we can say that, with the weapons you have, that is India has, the weapons we have, that is Pakistan has, can we really afford such a miscalculation? The thesis being all wars are miscalculated. No one knows where they lead to. He says World War I was supposed to end in weeks, took 6 years. And similarly, the US war on terrorism, who expected it to last 17 years? Whoever said it, this is a sensible thing to say, which most of us agree with. There is no alternative. You got to be firm. You got to appreciate the sacrifices made by our armed forces. We share the grief of the families that lost so many lives, more than 40 lives just a few weeks ago. But at the end of the day, use your heads and act to engage.
Okay.
And if I was in Pakistan's shoes, Imran Khan's shoes, I would send the pilot back with full dignity and honor tomorrow.
But that's a very interesting thing, because if Imran Khan actually means what he says, and if anything he says is trustworthy, he can display that in action by releasing the pilot safe and sound as quickly as possible. Mr. Trigonian, here's, since we're looking at that statement, the thing that actually we found very disconcerting was if this escalates, things will no longer be in my control. Now that is a very worrying thing for a head of state to say.
Or Modi's control, or Modi's control.
Yes, yes.
My control or Modi's control.
Yes. Mr. Trigonian, do you believe that Imran Khan's word should be taken at face value?
Well, I would like to say, number one is that we have avenged the Pulwama attack by decimating the camp of jaish-e-mohammed, which has been acknowledged by Pakistan eventually, because when in his statement he also admitted to that they were waiting for the casualties, and then they had promised some kind of incursion into India, which they did, and eventually what happened we all know. Now, as far as this statement is concerned, it is sounding a very one would say idealistic kind of a statement in which he has tried to once again invite India for the dialogue. But he's Not at all. I mean, when Prince Salman was here, we also spoke to him about the kind of terrorist infrastructure Pakistan has created, and they are continuously hitting at us. And therefore, there was no other option for India but to go in for this. And it was clearly said that it was a preemptive strike against a terrorist outfit, not against the people or Pakistan government. And that is why this has not escalated. Now, this current situation is such that it could escalate if we were to follow it through. But I believe that Pakistan is under tremendous pressure. In fact, the rest of the world has clearly spoken, whether it is China or anybody else, that anybody who is supporting the terrorist group. So Pakistan is currently in the dock in the first place. Secondly, now a situation has arisen because of the pilot. I mean, that has brought about a new angle. But what I want to say is that the Imran Khan is actually trying to say that when it will be out of our control, means probably he's trying to refer to the nuclear option, which is actually off the table in my view.
Well, in fact, there is a question that's coming from one of our viewers. Radhe Mohan is written in and saying, was Imran Khan trying to threaten us in that statement in an indirect way? You know, and let me read out more of it, where he said, I ask, with the weapons that you have and the weapons that we have, can we afford such a miscalculation? Is that a veiled threat in your opinion?
Well, it is, without a doubt. And he's not used the N-word, but in pretty much indirect sense, he is trying to say that both of us are nuclear powers and you cannot afford to have something like a miscalculation. Now, in many ways, it can and it should be read as a threat as well. But I'll tell you the real problem. The trouble is not, I mean, I slightly humbly disagree with Mr. Ram in only one thing. This is not the Imran Khan that we've seen on the cricket field. This is a very different Imran Khan.
It's not a gentleman's game.
It's not a gentleman's game at all. He's a man today who's controlled by the army. He's had the support of radical elements in his accession to power. And pretty much everything that he says or does is being dictated by someone else. I mean, if you notice very carefully, it's not a fanciful theory. It's actually true. Even if you see today's statement that came out on video, it has what we refer to in television called jump cuts, which means somebody edited some parts of what he said. And this is not the kind of thing that you would normally expect in a democracy which runs normally. It's not a normal democracy. He may have been elected normally, democratically, but that's not a normal
democracy. Historically, when Pakistan's offer for talks, let's sit across the table and solve this with dialogue, how trustworthy has it been in the past?
It's never been. I mean, they've said so for a very, very long time. I mean, I think forever they've said, after Parliament attack, they said the same thing. After 2611, the same thing has happened. So they have been offering talks or claiming to talk about, all these issues for a very long time. The issue is, has the Indian government run out of patience on that? And if they have, what are the options you have? There is one option that was exercised yesterday. We've had a bit of an issue on that today when you've lost one of your pilots who's now into enemy territory, and that has definitely changed some bit of the narrative in that sense, because clearly, however much we may want to say, his safety remains one of the big items on the table for sure for the government.
Marshal Chopra, obviously this is going to weigh in on the government, but do you believe, in your opinion, that the fact that we have one POW now does mean that India should de-escalate?
No, I think that notwithstanding the past experience with Pakistan and how they treated Nichikita and some other occasions, we all know that 700 dead Pakistani soldiers on Kargil slopes were not taken back by Pakistanis, despite India having offered to help them take these bodies back so that they could give them the due that they deserve. But I think this time Pakistan will not harm the pilot. They will, to some extent, follow the Geneva Convention. Of course, they will grill him. They will ask him a lot of questions. But I think they will let the pilot come back to us unharmed, and they will let him come back to us early enough. But should that become an issue of pressure on the Indian government to immediately de-escalate because the pilot is there? We know the pilot has been seen. The Prime Minister has acknowledged, the Prime Minister has said that the pilot is with them and he'll be looked after. So I think this should not become an issue for India to get pressurized. Now, my personal take is that the whole thing has started because for repeated occasions, repeated incidents, we have had the terrorist attacks, and we all know that the Pakistan ISI and the army is supporting this. So what India needs for de-escalation is, whether it's through world pressure, whether it's through India's back channel, whether it's through continued strong military stand. We need some level of assurance from Pakistan to say that is it, because for us, for long we have been seen as a soft state. I'm not trying to say that we should escalate. We certainly need to de-escalate, but the escalation should have a minimum level of assurance from Pakistan that they are going to act against terror. And this must be told to the entire world. And the world must also put enough pressure on Pakistan so that we have some kind of assurance. And only if that assurance comes can we afford to de-escalate with some degree of self-respect, because after all, we have gone against Pakistan, specifically only against terror and not against the country.
Well, I did see Colonel Singh put his hand up. Colonel Singh, you seem to disagree that the captivity of one Indian Air Force pilot shouldn't change decision-making.
It's a big nation, and there is a particular reason as to why we have gone across and struck Balakot. Now, India is, as of now, as we are talking, we are not in a position of strength to go to dialogue tables and talk, because just because the Bollywood templated driven population is showing or may show some great emotions and pressurize the government. That will be very stupid on part of the government if they do so. It's okay, the army soldiers or the Air Force pilots and all, they are very much aware that such kind of things can happen. There are no emotions involved. When nations are talking in a different language, there is no emotion involved. We have to get onto the table with a position of strength. It is a matter of national importance. So I'm not saying that we go all out and go right up to the N word, but I'm not saying that. But we have to bring this escalation to a point wherein we are in a position of strength, and then we should get into the offers of dialogues and then whatever may it be. But as of now, there's just no question, and I'm sure the government of India will not succumb to a very wrong kind of advice from wherever it is coming. And please take in context what Arun Jaitley has said, that India is at a point where anything can happen.
Mr. Ram seems to disagree. Mr. Ram, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely disagree. You have no choice. And the threat from nuclear weapons is a real threat. We do not believe it will be used. But once, you're riding a tiger. I wrote a book about
Mr. Ram, if you don't mind, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a small question?
Please don't interrupt me. You can ask after that. I won't interrupt you. You can certainly ask me after, because I was asked by the anchor. Yes, I think there's no alternative. I wouldn't interpret what he said when he said make
I respect your age.
Mr. Modi's as a threat. I think that's a reality. You have no choice but to do it. I think this business of escalating up to a point and then going for a negotiation, I don't really believe in it, because you don't know. It could be a miscalculation. That's the whole point. With the weapons both countries have, can we afford a miscalculation is a question every Indian should also ask. I really believe it. There are serious issues involved here. India should take a firm stand on this for the elimination of the infrastructure for terror, concrete actions based on evidence. They can't pretend there's no evidence. Absolutely true. The infrastructure does exist in Pakistan. It has taken a huge toll of civilian lives and the lives of our security forces as well in India. All that is a given. But just as in the case of China, at one point, you said everything, you put forward conditions for talks, but Rajiv Gandhi in 1988 made a historic visit, followed by every prime minister after that, which said, you don't have to wait to resolve the boundary question in order to establish peace along the line of actual control. So non-use of force along the line of actual control was the breakthrough moment. Here also, similarly, you should do your best to de-escalate. It doesn't mean appeasement of anything. I don't believe in that. You have to be firm with your demands. The return of the pilot is very important, as important as anything else. It is an emotional issue, but it's also a real issue for India. People, these lives matter, because he did his job. He went there and carried out a mission. I saw that video, and he this pilot behaved with this officer behaved with great dignity. I think he said, you don't expect me to answer that question, and he's asked about where he came from and what was his mission and so on. And I agree with one of the panelists that I think he will not be harmed. So there is no alternative to talking, but you discover whether they're sincere or not in the process of talking. I firmly believe in this.
Okay, let me open this up, unless Colonel Singh has a question for Mr. Ram. Colonel Singh, go ahead.
No, I just want to ask that whatever veiled threat Imran Khan has given, should we get scared? Is it over? Now should we go running, begging for a pilot? What are we trying to say? What are we trying to sell on this program?
Yes, Mr. Ram.
We're not going to beg for the return of the pilot. We have a right to demand the return of the pilot under the Geneva Convention and under all norms of civilized international conduct, bilateral conduct also in this case. So I think that is the no need. So I don't see in terms of begging and loss of face and so on. India has carried out a certain act. There's been retaliation because they said, you came into our country, we came into yours, and so on. Now is the time to talk. If the idea is here's an important point coming in. In a joint statement by the opposition parties that's taken issue with the Prime Minister, or rather the leaders of the ruling party, for trying to derive political mileage or politicizing the sacrifices made by our armed forces. It's a very serious charge. So if you want to escape from that stigma that you are politicizing it or manipulating this for domestic political advantage, if you want to show your credentials on that, there is no problem at all in talking with them. Talk firmly, put forward all your demands, backed by evidence. But don't say, I'll escalate up to a point and then I'll talk. You have no control over it. You'll miscalculate. That's my point.
So let me pose another question before the panel at this point, and that question is about escalation or de-escalation. Should or will the government of India at this point be focused on de-escalating the situation? Because one of the clues we received today is the fact that the airports north of Delhi were reopened after they stayed closed for several hours today as a precautionary part of protocol. Does this mean the government is focused right now on de-escalating the situation? Or, like Colonel Singh was saying, this is no reason for us, or de-escalating at this point would actually seem like we're sort of stepping back on a weak point, Vinay?
Look, the trouble is that I don't think anyone is using the word escalation can quite define what that escalation means.
Yes.
Because you need to define what escalation means, right? If you say that we need to escalate it, how, till what level?
Yes.
The question is very simple. Pakistan, through its terrorists, carried out an attack against our forces in Pulwama. 40 soldiers lost their lives. The Indian government decided, rightly, that they need to avenge that, or they need to carry out an operation which is targeted against the terrorists which planned and carried out the operation, and hence Balkots was chosen. That is an action for which a decisive response has been already done. Now, the cyclical nature of the next act has come from Pakistan, where today morning, admittedly by MEA's own statement, they attempted to target Indian military installations.
Yes.
Now, the question is escalation a response to this as well? The Indian Air Force chased them back, which is why we lost one plane and our pilot is in their custody. But we chased them out. They could never inflict that damage to our military installations at all. We chased them back. Now, what is the next step for escalation? Are we saying that now we're going to bomb everything or anything that we see? You have to carry out something targeted. If the government indeed wanted this escalated, they would not have worded this MEA statement the way they did yesterday.
Yes.
They were very clear that this is an intelligence-led, non-military operation.
Forgive me, let me just point out to you again, even today, when the Ministry of External Affairs put out this note, it was only in para 4 of the note that the Indian Air Force officer came in, was mentioned. Before that, it talked about how the acting High Commissioner of Pakistan has been summoned. They talked about the unprovoked act of aggression by Pakistan, using the word unprovoked very carefully, obviously, including violation of Indian airspace, targeting Indian military posts, brought it in contrast to what India had done, which is India's non-military anti-terror preemptive strike against JEM terror. And in the last paragraph, it says one more time, regret expressed on the continuing denial of Pakistan's political and military leadership at the presence of terrorist infrastructure in its territory. A dossier was handed over to the Pakistan side, but obviously Pakistan did nothing. So it is, while there is in one paragraph a mention of the officer in question, there are 5 paragraphs that talk about Pakistan's inaction and what merited this
I'm very clear in
response.
my mind. The withdrawal, the implementation of NOTAM and the withdrawal of it, the implementation of NOTAM was a defensive maneuver. It was not an offensive maneuver at all. The Indian government was taking a preemptive measure should Pakistan try some adventurism again, and we would have to carry out sorties without any hindrance of civilian airspace. So I think that was a defensive maneuver. We shouldn't look at it offensively at all. The fact that the Indian government has categorically said there was a problem and we've gone and avenged that problem by targeting where the problem came from is for them mission done. Now today the mission done has been retaliated by Pakistani attempting to make an Indian military this target. That has not happened. The only thing that has happened, which was not part of your plan, was an Indian pilot landing in their custody. That's it. So I'm not sure, even if the Indian government's point of view, in fact, I would personally say the Indian government has acted with great restraint in this matter. They've actually communicated it well. They've only issued statements and they've completely clamped up. There's no comment, nothing coming in. There's no jingoism, at least publicly, beyond the first day when there was a rally. That's it. There was nothing else beyond that. So in that sense, the mood of the government seems to be very clear. They don't really want this to become a cyclical nature of war with Pakistan.
Yes. In fact, that's my question next, and that's my question to Mr. Trigoniat. Mr. Trigoniat, what is the process between two countries in a situation like this when one member of our armed forces personnel is being held in custody by the other country? What normally happens? Could you explain to our audience what the process of either conversation or, or dialogue would be with regard to this particular situation?
Well, as you know that at the moment there is no declaration of war from either side. Even though there has been an incursions into the territory, that has been there, but openly they have not declared the war. What has happened now is that the first step has already been taken. I mean, today is the statement which the dossier and everything that was handed over, and the Pakistani acting High Commissioner has been told that the Indian pilot should be returned. So that is one way of doing it, and this is precisely what we have done. We do not expect that he'll be returned tomorrow only, but at the same time, whatever noises are being made from the other side, and especially by the Prime Minister at the behest probably of the army, that they are willing to enter into a dialogue and also talk about terrorism, and if provided we give them some kind of an evidence, which has been given to them. Now, in such situation, then we'll have to continue to pressure. I mean, normally through the international, through United Nations, through other places, and everybody is asking Pakistan and India both actually, more to Pakistan to address, while they are telling everybody, both the sides, that you please try to de-escalate or not escalate further. They are also telling Pakistan to address the core issue. The core issue is addressing terrorism, which is what India has been demanding all along, and the action that preceded by India was essentially against terrorist outfits who have been perpetrating terrorism in India at the behest or probably in collusion with the army and the intelligence, Pakistani intelligence. So therefore, now it will continue like this. We have already made the démarche for his return, and it will continue like that, and through other fora also. And as and when the talks eventually begin, because I know that we are not going from the position of weakness today. We have already shown, and we have already shown our resolve that if Pakistan indulges into any adventurism further, it will get a fitting response from India. And that they know also that India means business. And today, the international public opinion is with India. And that is why we are in a much stronger wicket at the moment to put down our conditions to Pakistan and let them come clean on, especially on terrorism, and of course, return our pilot with dignity.
Absolutely. Javed Ansari, obviously, and I want to come back to this, this is perhaps the first, and if we could safely call it perhaps armed conflict, would that be a safe term to use, since we're not, we're not declaring war, but there is, of course, a back and forth that's going on.
Well, the use of the Air Force by both sides post-Kargil, yes, it's after Kargil, yes.
So it's perhaps the first time, Javed Ansari, that this is happening in the world of WhatsApp and social media and all of these other things, the exchange of information across the border unofficially, with videos being circulated back and forth. Those videos have wound up now in the WhatsApp groups of every one of our families. Everybody's talking about it. It's a very different world, perhaps, from Kargil or any of the other instances in the past. How much pressure does that public opinion put on the Indian government? How much pressure does that put on the armed forces and what they, when they're trying to do their jobs as well?
Well, we, in a perfect world, they should not put pressure. I'd hate a situation where the government of India has put in, a similar situation as in the case of IC-814 when that hijacking took place. The government was literally pressurized, and the media also ought to take some blame for it. The kind of, the manner in which we conducted ourselves then and the manner in which we are conducting ourselves now. These WhatsApp messages, the best way of contributing to them is don't circulate them, don't give credence, don't share it with others. Just go by what respective governments are saying. There's also some good stuff coming out from both sides of the border. We had Bina Sarwar from across in Pakistan saying that we should jointly be fighting poverty and violence and unemployment and illiteracy rather than there are others here from our country who are voicing these sentiments. So the best way of dealing with this unguided missile called social media is to largely try and contain it, not add to it. Don't contribute to this fog of war, to this disinformation, deliberate misinformation campaign emanating from both sides. And the government should decide matters on merit, keeping larger national interest in mind rather than go by what social media is saying, because the social media and television anchors, and I include myself, all of us, we say one thing in the morning and we say quite the other the next day. So just just follow your hunch, take a call based on the information you have, and just keep national interest paramount.
All right, Mr. Ansari, and the rest of the panel, I want to thank you for your time. But picking up from what Mr. Ansari said, we must remember that a lot of this battle is being fought on information. And as Indian citizens, we have a responsibility as well. First of all, there is a lot of information being circulated on social media and WhatsApp. Do not forward information from sources that are not reliable. Do not move posts or videos or any information around, especially if it's information that will cause panic. Verify and cross-check every fact before you act on it. A good way to verify information is through the big national newspapers or through one of the larger TV channels. Always look for authentic information that comes from a government source, either the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Home Affairs, ideally, or a state government. These are actually sources of information that you should trust. Now, when you're out and about, especially in a crowded place, remember to carry a valid identification card at all points. Be vigilant and aware when you're traveling in public transport or in crowded places. Be vigilant and aware of anything suspicious around you. If you do see something suspicious, report it to the police as quickly as possible. It is likely that when you travel either by train or by plane or in any other form of public transport, there will be heightened security. Be patient with security services if they are checking and if they are frisking and you have to stand in line a little longer. Remember that it is only being done for our own safety. Comes back to the fact that given the fact that Pakistan put out 2 or 3 videos today that were completely false, they are aware of the fact that false information has a large role to play. As citizens, we should not allow that upper hand. We should make sure that we don't forward anything or believe anything unless it comes from official sources of the governments of India or the governments of our states. Stay with Mirror now for more news and updates.